The Babysitter. It is seldom that folks, through no fault of their own, and no different than I, would know how to respond to what I've seen. As far as I know, seldom, if any, have experienced these things I long to tell you about, dear reader. Know that once you've read this story, a nightlight is in order, and it's because darkness is what houses the very thing I have to tell you about. Now, I'm just a woman who has started college, and I am most terribly broke. Needless to say, I found myself 2 weeks ago thumbing through some wanted ads and hoping to find a babysitting job. I found an ad that caught my eye. I cannot disclose what app I used to do this job search, as the following events warranted a scandal, causing it to be classified information. Victoria, you've been at it for hours. Find anything yet? Mother believed I was pushing myself too hard. I found a good listing. I'm going to call them first thing in the morning, I told her, half asleep as I chose with seeming involuntary action the option to tell the streaming service that I was indeed still watching. I noticed I had spilled some popcorn on the couch in my half-awake watching of the Night of the Living Dead. I wasn't really paying attention until the movie character says, "I'm coming to get you, Barbara." This had jolted me awake right before Mother had checked on me, so my answer had been delivered frantically. "Victoria, are you okay?" "Yes, Mother. Just had an odd dream is all." I wanted to give her a half lie. "You know, you should really take a break. You're already a barista, and your schedule is tight with school and volunteering." And I interrupted my poor mother to say, "It's fine, Mom. It really is. I need to complete these classes, and I also need money." "But you also need time to heal and grieve. Now, I know Barbara's death has affected you just as deeply as it affected me, and I know you're hurting. I can see it in the way you drift off and daydream, and I know you're not sleeping well in your room or on the couch." I got up and gave my mother a long hug. I miss her. I couldn't help but sob. Mom sobbed a bit too, and she said the same. We made late-night coffee, which was our common dirty secret. Us Richards women love to stay up and talk until the sun rises. But we get so much shit for our irregularities in sleep, we have to keep our late-night adventures down to once a week. We changed the channel to a sitcom we both enjoyed for some light fun and fell asleep on the couch together. When I woke up, it was 11 a.m. I could smell maple sausages and cheesy eggs. Mother was singing in the kitchen. An old song by Neil Young played on her old radio. It took a little while for me to fully wake up. I went and got some coffee and told Mother, "Good morning." She smiled at me as she continued cooking and singing, and that's when I realized she was also making biscuits. Now, I had been very self-conscious about my weight, and a part of me was irritated that Mother didn't respect my diet, and another part of me was deciding this one day wouldn't hurt, and to treat myself to some molasses and butter for my biscuits. A reminder alert went off on my phone, so I chugged some coffee and called the number on the wanted ad, seeking a babysitter. Grant residence, a very young boy answered. "Hello, is your mommy or daddy nearby? I'd like to speak to them." "Marky, get off the phone, please. A woman's voice said as I heard the clumsy clicking of the other phone. How odd, a landline in the 2020s? Sorry, I apologize. We use a landline, which is silly, I know, but we just bought this house and it's incredibly old. Our cell service doesn't seem to do well in this part of town. Well, Forest, really. We're out in Kingston Springs, just a 15-minute drive from town. Oh, I'm rambling. Is this about the ad? The nervous woman said this chunk of dialogue in less than 15 seconds. She sounded anxious yet endearing. Yes, my name is Victoria Richards. I saw your ad yesterday and I wanted to throw my name in the hat. I've got a lot of experience with babysitting and the neighbors' kids and my sis. I spoke the words, half forgetting how she died. How she had a heart attack so young. It felt unreal, and it did not sit with me well. The younger siblings are not supposed to die, so I suppose the cause of death is not that important. Yes, dear, are you still there? Oh, sorry, ma'am. Yes, I'm still here. Would you like to swing by this afternoon for an interview? The woman sounded less nervous now. I would love to. How does 4:30 p.m. sound? I'm afraid my day is busy with other obligations, but you are the only person in 2 weeks to have answered our ad. And my husband, Ted, I'm Catherine, by the way, my husband will be leaving on business at the beginning of August, and it's already the 29th. I work full-time, and our last babysitter quit without notice. I was shocked to hear this, and I asked, surely not on the job? Yes, Miss Richards. My son was asleep the whole time in his bed, but she left the house unlocked in the middle of the night. We really need a babysitter, but I'd be lying if I said that event didn't make me wary of trusting someone to take care of him. He's a sweet kid, easy to care for. Oh, Jesus, look at the time. I'm running late, and I must go. Here's our address. Do you have a pen and paper? Yes, Catherine. That's such a crazy story. Okay, I'm ready. And I waited an odd interval of seconds of silence before she finally told me. 5667 Sandwood Drive, Kingston Springs, Tennessee. We're deep in the forest behind the town Dairy Queen off of Highway 12. I must go, but I look forward to seeing you. And the clunky landline phone clicked on the other side. I noticed my cell needed to charge, so I plugged it in. I had 3 hours before I had to leave, so I helped Mother with the dishes and cleaned the bathroom and vacuumed the house. Finally, the time came to leave, and right before I had to leave, my guts churned and my bladder hurt, as all of a sudden I needed to use the bathroom. It took too long and made me 5 minutes behind schedule. I was mad at myself for not using the bathroom sooner. I sped a bit in my gray Toyota Camry down Highway 12, hoping the late month quotas would be satisfied by now for the traffic cops. This was a foolish decision, but I made it to their driveway in time without incident. It was a long path of gravel, and I took my time because my tires are old and I'm not risking any more expenses. The trees had a way of blocking out the sky and the sun almost entirely, and the driveway was very dimly lit like it was already twilight, but it was merely 4:22 p.m. Finally, a large house appeared. Oh, it was a dream. 4 stories from the ground up. I imagined it also had a basement, and it had 2 towers with a few gables between them in a wide and long distance. It stood on a slight incline, and you could tell that past the backyard, the forest went downhill into a creek. I saw a truck and a van in an open garage, separate from the house, and I parked. I took a deep breath and told myself, "Victoria, you got this." I kissed the necklace my sister gave me last year for good luck. It was a cheap old thing, but when your 16-year-old sister gives you a present, you cherish it, especially after they're gone. I stepped out and got a good look at the house. It had to be 100 years old. I know I had never been here before, yet it seemed all too familiar. Could it be? It was, indeed, the haunted manor of Cheatham County. I had no idea it was on the market. And remembering the photos I had seen in our state history class, I also remembered with little details of how, but that place was documented to be a haunted dwelling. Now, mind you, I am studying physics in college. I've always had a love for science and knowledge, and hauntings were of very little interest to me outside of entertainment. I figured, here's a wealthy business couple with an only child who found their dream home, and it was a beautiful house despite the aging exterior. Underneath all that new paint was proof of its antiquity, and it didn't take a superstitious mind to know that with a century of standing tall in the forest came a bit of folklore mixed with history of its past residents. I knew it at the time to all be just that, folklore and nothing else. Hearsay, rumors, gossip, and a legend here and there wasn't going to deter me from knocking on that door. Like clockwork, the door opened upon the second knock, my hand still in the air to knock once more when my eyes met who I presumed to be the nervous mother, Catherine. "Right on time," as she signaled me to come in. In an old-fashioned gesture, she offered to take my bag for me and hung it on the coat rack. "Wow, Catherine, your house, it's just as beautiful on the inside as it is on the outside." "Thank you, dear. We got it for a great deal, seeing 10 acres of this forest came with it." "Amazing." The two of us talked for a while like this until she got down to business as we entered a dining area adjacent to the hall leading towards the living room. I could see the little boy, who couldn't have been older than 6, reading. I was already half in love with the prospect of working here. "Now, Marky, as I said before, sweet boy, easy to care for. You know, Catherine, I've never seen a boy so lost in a book like that. His father and I can't figure it out either. We taught him how to read very young, but he took to it." "That's remarkable," I said. "Now, there's only one issue with Marky, and it brings upon the condition of the job. You see, Marky, like a lot of kids, has night terrors, but he also tends to sleepwalk. It seems every night the poor boy—" She trailed off and looked at her son with worried eyes. And I interjected, saying, "You know, I had nightmares when I was his age. I can empathize." I had only told her the truth. "Well, in recent months, it's gotten worse, and he's taken to having these night terrors and walking around the house in his sleep. You see, I'd blame it on him being 5 and moving to another house, but it started at the old house when he had just turned 4. I see. Well, what would I need to know when this happens? So that brings us to the condition of babysitting. We need somebody willing to stay up as late as midnight, as I sometimes work really late hours, but I'm never returning home later than midnight. The conditions are as follows. We need a babysitter willing to stay up that late, and we offer a very comfortable couch there in the main room behind Marky, as you see. Marky still had his nose in a copy of Andrew Lang's fairy tales. I see, that sounds really reasonable. Here's the catch. This house is so big. Marky's bedtime is 8:30, so for 3.5 hours you must stay awake and check on him every 20 minutes, as he is prone to getting up and wandering this very large house in his sleep. Our worst fear is he will fall down the stairs, or he will hurt himself, or even go outside. You see, Ted and I once found him outside, facing a tree and shivering in his sleep. Oh wow. I really didn't know what to say. Then I added, I would set an alarm on vibrate on my cell phone for every 20 minutes and make sure he's okay. With this, I added a reassuring smile. You see, earlier I did lie to Catherine. It wasn't me who had night terrors as a child. It was Barbara. With us being 9 years different in age, I found myself struggling to comfort her many nights. I found her in the kitchen standing asleep. Every time I woke her, she would let out the most blood-curdling scream, and at once gained the attention of our neighbors. I wasn't about to share this with Catherine, that sweet and nervous lady with the blonde curly hair. She was a very cute lady in her 40s, whose fashion of clothes would best be described as 90s. A tad old to have such a young son, but I didn't care. I was also not much for sharing about my sister's untimely death, and I didn't want Catherine to think that I was fishing for her sympathy. One thing I will add, and this is very important. Her bright blue eyes teared up a bit. I knew she was traumatized after hearing about the negligence of the last babysitter. You see, Marky is a very smart boy. He isn't like most 5-year-olds, as you can see. When Brenda, the last babysitter, had abandoned her post, he was asleep the whole time, and when I got home, he wasn't in his bed. Now, he must have been sleepwalking again, as we found him in the basement. It's an odd thing, for we kept it locked, and we're still not sure how it got unlocked, as there is no key. But after 30 minutes of searching for your son, you turned to every option, and I had found the door open that led to the basement stairs. She paused a bit, seeming to trail off again. You see, he doesn't watch TV or play games, and I know he didn't get this from reading, but he said he wasn't sleepwalking. He claims he heard a man calling him down there. He gave me very specific details about how he had one healthy eye and one eye missing from its socket. How he had a scar leading down from that socket to his chin. He had black hair and a big smile and dressed in an old suit. Marky even remembered that his name was Bartholomew Xavier Smith. Now, mind you, it still sends chills down my spine to picture a man inside the house interacting with my boy. And I'd be damned if Ted, who returned 2 days later from a trip, searched the whole house over from the attic to the basement. Anywho, I'm not a believer of ghosts. I don't mean to scare you. I just want you to be prepared that when you go check on Marky, to not be alarmed if he's not in his bed. But you will have to search for him. He usually stays on the ground floor, but with my luck, he'll be attempting to sleepwalk up the stairs one night. Catherine sighed and filled up our teacups. I'm a scientist, Catherine, I said, and believe me, this all sounds very manageable and not as scary to me as you might think. I don't believe in ghosts either. When I said this, my 40-something-year-old host smiled and affectionately took my hand. Good. Then you're hired. We pay $400 a day. I know it's only 3.5 hours he is asleep, and the rest of the day he's quite content with his books, so it's practically labor-free. But we can afford to ensure our boy gets the right fit. I'm so sorry that other babysitter did that to y'all. I can't imagine leaving a child alone in the house. A house so isolated in these woods, too. What could she have possibly needed to do that's worth abandoning a child? Catherine's smile disappeared with my words. She drank her hot tea carefully. She looked at Marky over in the main living area, who was still reading. Then she looked back at me. I'm sure you've heard the stories and legends about this house. It's a local pride to spread these horrible stories, and frankly, I'm quite sick of it. Having to explain to everyone that my house isn't haunted is exhausting. I imagine Brenda, who has never returned my calls, by the way, was either spooked having heard the stories of Sandwood Mansion. I also imagine the option that Marky's nighttime sleep troubles didn't help. And quite possibly it all became too much to handle. I can't say I don't blame her for abandoning my child, but it isn't out of the realm of possibility that she heard the old pipes making that knocking noise they make every night from the basement. I also imagine it's highly unlikely that Marky's tales of the man in the basement, plus hearing those sounds, drove her to a madness of panic and she ran away. She's a grown woman. She should have at least given us a call. We talked for another 20 minutes. Catherine introduced me to Marky after asking him to take a break from his book. The young child was very shy and quiet, but sweet. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Victoria. Oh, you can call me Vicky. All my friends call me that. Besides, I'm not a Mrs. I smiled as his mother explained to him that we address all ladies as Miss unless told otherwise. The boy understood and asked if he could have a snack. This gave Catherine the opportunity to show me the kitchen and where to find his favorite meals. She walked me through the whole house and we passed by what must have been the basement door. It had been bound by a chain with a hefty padlock, a rather strange precaution, I thought. Then, understanding the circumstances and how protective mothers and fathers could be, I understood very well. Ted won't be home until 7 tonight, or else I'd introduce you to him. but you may as well never meet him. He's gone a lot on business, and while we get time together enough, he is generally only home between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. And that's when he's not sent away on business. Today is Tuesday, and Ted leaves the night of the 31st. Will Friday be an okay start date? We can go from there. That would be perfect. And believe me, Catherine, you won't regret hiring me. I'll make sure Marky gets plenty of care and attention, awake and asleep. What time shall I arrive on Friday? Let's shoot for 8 a.m. I have to be at work by 9:30, but I want to arrive a bit early as I'm coming back from an extended vacation, and I really have hefty workload waiting for me. I'm an accountant for a crematorium service. I know it seems morbid to say, but death makes quite a business world, and accountants can make quite a living, as you can see. Well, you get the idea. Catherine's words were not disagreeable, but it struck a chord. Miss Barbara has been cremated. I snapped out of the pause of zoning out, which made me feel strange as I had maintained taking my medication. I understand. Seems like a very worthwhile profession. It's been great meeting you, Catherine. I will see you Friday morning. I waved goodbye to her and Marky, who was so captivated by his book. He had not noticed me until his mother urged him to wave back. I heard the door shut behind me as I turned to my old Camry and drove back home. I had a pile of homework to do, and thankfully no classes on Friday and over the weekend. In the few days between our meeting and Friday morning, I had been tempted to call Catherine with more questions like emergency numbers, food allergies, acceptable activities, etc. But instead I made a list of things to run by her on Friday morning before she left for work. What's Marky's favorite toy? What activities besides reading did he enjoy? I compiled these few questions over the following days, along with more homework from school. It seemed I had no reason to sleep on the job, besides watching out for this kid sleepwalking. I'd have enough homework to keep me busy as he slept. And I made a pack for Friday with my books and folders and my snacks. Thursday evening had passed, and my mother wished me good luck on my first shift. I had a good reason to get a full night's sleep and managed to sleep a good 6 hours on the couch. When I awoke on Friday, I grabbed my pack and made my way in my gray, beat-up Camry towards the Kingston Springs Dairy Queen. I reached the road and kept going till I reached the driveway of the Sandwood Mansion. This time the garage was shut, and Catherine was helping Marky tie his shoes on the porch. I got there 10 minutes early, but it seemed she was quite anxious to get an early start on her workday. She gave Marky a very long hug, then she wrote down the answers to all my questions I had for her. Most importantly, her cell phone number, which only worked in town, she said. The forest has a way of blocking the signal here for some reason. Feel free to use any of the landline phones throughout the house. There's one in most of the rooms. Catherine bid me and Marky farewell and opened her garage where just her van was parked. Ted must have driven his truck to the airport, I figured. The faded sunlight of day was obscured by the canopy of forest all around the large house on the large property. There was very little natural light inside of Sandwood Mansion. There were oil lamps and candles most everywhere, but the house had a working generator and modern overhead lights in every room. "All right, Marky, you are free to read as much as you want to. Your mother told me what you likes to eat, and lunch will be in 3 hours. Afterwards, it looks like your mommy wants us to walk around outside a while." "Sounds lovely, Vicky." The little boy's words had an uncanny tone of maturity to them. He went over to that same spot on the floor and predictably began to read his enormous volume of fairy tales. It was a very peaceful day as I helped myself to their cleaning supplies in hopes of making a great first shift impression. Out of curiosity, I pulled out my phone to do some internet research on the house's history. However, I had forgotten that the service wasn't great here, and it took way too long for the page to load. I put my phone to sleep and put it in my pocket. I'd finished cleaning and decided to sit on the comfortable couch near little Marky and sketch a bit. I'd always loved to draw, but I was no good at it. Pretty soon, the landline phone rang. "Hello?" There was static and cracking noises. No answer had come. Then a click and a disconnected beeping. Must have been cut off for some reason. Whoever it is will call again if it's important, I thought. I began to prepare Marky's lunch, a ham and cheddar sandwich with baby carrots and apple slices. He ate most of it down to my satisfaction, and he went back to his reading. Heck, I didn't even know any adults who read this much. It was very inspiring, actually. So I sat near him with a book of my own. When I realized I brought no reading for pleasure material, I perused the shelves that lined the main living area. To my delight, I found a small, independently published book by a historian on the subject of Sandwood Mansion. I began to read when the house phone rang again. I reached for the phone and answered. There was no voice, just crackling and static. I said hello at least 6 times until the call dropped again. Immediately after putting the phone on the receiver, another call came. Hello? "Victoria, this is Catherine. Just calling to check on you and see how Marky is doing." "Oh, hey, Miss Grant. I tried answering your call a few times this morning, but the phone gave me nothing but static. Everything's going swell. Marky and I are about to take his daily walk outside." Catherine said nothing for a bit, then responded, "Well, that's strange. It wasn't me who called. Must have been one of those automated scammers." "Huh," I said. "I suppose so. All is well here. Marky hasn't spoken much. But that's normal, yeah? He's pretty much read all day." "Yep, that's totally normal. It takes them a while to warm up to new people. Anywho, I gotta get back to work. You've got my number if you need anything. Bye-bye now." Click. She hung up before I could say anything else. Well, Marky, the little boy looked up from his book and out of the window behind me. Ready? Yes, ma'am. He smiled for the first time I had seen, and it was a warm smile. He was ready for a walk outside. Go put your boots on. He went to his room down the hall and returned wearing his little boots and a cute little hunting cap. He was ready to go. It was a warm August day, but I wasn't about to tell him not to wear his cap. We strolled around outside with me mostly following him. I caught up with him and tried to make conversation. So, you really do love to read? Oh yeah, Mommy read to me since I was a baby. She said I learned fast. I think that's incredible. You know, for a boy your age to be reading so much. By the time you're my age, you'll have achieved a lot, I bet. Maybe, he said sadly. Dad thinks there's something wrong with me. Oh, I don't know. I think he loves you based off of my conversations with your mom. Oh, he loves me. But he thinks I'm not right in the head. Now, why do you say that? I heard him and Mommy fighting over what kind of doctor I need. They think I need one of those psychologists. Well, many people need psychologists, I said, emphasizing the correct way to say it. But it doesn't mean they're broken or that something is wrong with them. I guess, he said. Does it have to do with the man in the basement? I asked, not understanding at first the impact my words had had. Marky did not answer. He looked away and just kept walking. I checked the clock on my useless cell phone and saw we had been out for an hour and decided to bring us back inside. I'm sorry I brought it up, Marky. I'll make us some chocolate milk when we get inside. What do you think of that? He smiled back at me and nodded with a sweet little grin. We got inside and I told him to go read or pick out a movie if he wanted, and I'd bring him his chocolate milk. He instinctively chose to read more on the floor, and he seemed very happy to return to his book. I went to the kitchen and grabbed some chocolate syrup and milk from the refrigerator when the phone rang once again. Who could it be now, I wondered. The landline phone had a voice mailbox, but not a caller ID, so I answered in case it was Catherine or Ted Grant. Ted would most likely just call Catherine, I assumed, but I ruled nothing out. Hello? I heard nothing but heavy breathing. Hello? I can hear you breathing. I'm coming to get you. A strange, distorted voice said. What? Who is this? Click. The eerie-sounding stranger had ended the call. My chest and throat seemed to feel tense as I was rather taken aback by those words. It made me mad at first when then I realized that the locally famous Sandwood Mansion must be in the phone book, still prone to prank calls. Who would have thought that prank calls could still be a thing in these modern times, I had wondered, especially on the landline. I finished stirring up the chocolate syrup in the milk and poured out 2 glasses for myself and Marky. I brought it to him and he took a drink and sighed. "Delicious," he said, and smiled up at me from the floor. I smiled back at him and we both returned to reading. I read the introduction to the book on the house's history, as it gave a brief but insightful history of Cheatham County and Kingston Springs. I almost reached the end of the introduction where it said, "Built in 1893 by Jewish Scottish immigrants, the house has stood in its forest for 134 years with 6 different families, the most famous being the Pritchard family, who were all found dead one morning in January 1971. I almost reached this conclusion of the introduction when the phone rang again. "Hello, Grant Residence," I said, wondering if I am to play the receptionist role all night. It was around 3 p.m. at this time. "Hello? Who's there?" "Never you mind who I am." The strange, distorted voice from earlier. "I'm coming to get you as early as 11 p.m. The voice said before cackling so hard it made him cough. Click. The call ended. "Damn pranksters," I said aloud. Marky and I read for hours until supper came. I made us some chicken pasta. He seemed quite happy with it. It was 2 hours before Marky's bedtime when the next call came. "Hello?" "Don't you dare think this is a joke. I'll do to you what I did to Brenda." "And what was that exactly?" Click. He hung up. I had a knee-jerk response as this time the prank call got too real. How could he have known about Brenda? I felt a dreadful fear in my body. I looked over at Marky, who was finishing his food. I kept a watchful eye on him as I dialed the 3 digits out of instinct. "This is the 911 operator. Please state your emergency." "Yes, my name is Victoria Richards." I gave them the Sandwood Mansion address. "I am babysitting a little boy for the first time, and I'm receiving threatening calls on this landline phone I'm calling from." I thought it was just prank calls at first, but he started giving details about the family he couldn't have known. He said he's going to get me, whatever that means, and he says at 11 p.m. The 911 operator told me to keep Marky near me at all times and to alert his parents. She said she was sending an officer over in less than 20 minutes, as most officers were busy right now with a riot in the city. Some protests had clashed with local authorities, causing a riot, and their hands were full. Just my luck, I thought. The phone rang again. I had hoped it was either 911 with more information or Catherine so I could tell her what was happening, but this chance never came. "Hello?" At first the man cackled, then simply said, 1.5 hours, in a creepy, sinister sing-song voice. Began to panic when I got to go get Marky. He was done eating and beginning to yawn, hoping it was bedtime. "Vicky, are you okay?" "Yes, Marky. We're going to play a bit of a game, but Losing this game means grave danger. I don't have time to explain it, but the phone rang again. Oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry, Marky, I shouldn't have said that. Come with me, though. I held little Marky's hand, and we went over to the phone. Hello? There was just a crackle at first, when I got frustrated and yelled, "What now?" "Ma'am, this is 911. Oh dear, I'm sorry, the guy keeps calling." "That's okay. I need you to take the child with you outside immediately. We traced the call from inside the house." I froze, gripping Marky's hand firmly with one hand, and on the other hand I had the phone, in a paralysis of dread and horror. "Ma'am? Miss? You need to get out of the house now." Yes, doing it right now. Sorry." I hung up the phone, not knowing how much time had passed. 40 minutes ago, the cops were supposed to be here. It was 10:45. Where are we going? Poor Marky was left in the dark on knowing that any threat had come to our lives. Okay, the game has changed. We're going to go outside, and we're waiting for the cops to come. I'll explain once we're out there. I had no time to lead him by hand and told him I needed to carry him. I did so, and as we did, a loud banging noise came from the basement. The pipes, Catherine had told her. The pipes, Catherine had told me, were old. "The man in the basement," shouted Marky. "Yes, we're getting away from him." I ran until we were at the edge of the forest clearing circle around the house. To my relief, I saw flashing lights indicating the cop they sent was nearby. "Look," Marky pointed to the eastern tower of the mansion. Looking up, not letting go of him, I saw what Marky saw. A light was on in the top room, and there in the window, we saw a silhouette of a man standing, looking out at us. The silhouette had disappeared once the cop finally pulled up the semi-treacherous gravel driveway. "Are you Victoria Richards?" "Yes, sir. We saw his shadow in the top floor window, but it's gone now." "Okay, I have another officer on the way. I want you and the boy to come sit safely with me in the car. We've alerted the father, and he's taking the quickest flight back. He says he'll be here around 5 a.m., but he says he's never heard of you, Miss Richards. His wife must not have told him then. You see, she hired me this week to watch Marky." "I see," the cop said. "That's very Then he got a call which he had to answer on his headset. "We're going to take the boy to his aunt's house 3 counties over with a cop to keep watch over them. However, I'm going to need you to answer some questions at the station for me. We'll go as soon as backup arrives." "No problem," I said, as the cop looked at me strangely. There was something he wasn't telling me. A deputy and a sheriff and a team of officers combed the house. One took Marky with him, and I was escorted to the police station where I went all over the events of being hired and all the events leading up to the home invasion. There's just one thing that we can't make sense of. The cops pulled out a folder with photos. You see, Victoria, Catherine Grant has been dead for 2 years. Ted Grant's nanny is named Brenda, and it was she who was supposed to watch Marky. What do you mean she's been dead? I've had plenty of conversations with her the past few days. We shook hands, for Christ's sake. Alright, let's take a breather. I'll get us some coffee going, and we'll go back over this in a bit. But first, describe Catherine Grant to me. She's in her 40s. She has piercing blue eyes, curly blonde hair. Well, that's her, definitely, yeah. The officer nervously left the interrogation room, leaving me wondering what the hell was going on. Okay, so we found the intruder. We also found the body of Brenda Swanson. The intruder confessed immediately to the arresting officer. We're not sure why or how you came to be Marky's babysitter, but you saved his life tonight. We will need you to write down your contact information in case something comes up, but I'll give you a ride to your car and follow you off their property. We arrived at Sandwood Mansion. I promptly got in my car and looking up, I saw Catherine smiling at me on the porch. She vanished in a blur as the last officers were leaving the mansion. A forensics van had shown up to take their place. Now, I'm still a skeptic of the supernatural, but forever changed to believe that a mother's love and protection surpasses death. And in the case of Marky and Ted Grant, that's exactly what I had witnessed this week. As I drove away from Sandwood Mansion with the cop following me out the driveway, I wanted to get home safely. But more than anything, I wanted to hug my dear mother and never let go.